Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Hey, happy 4th of July. Welcome to the podcast. If you're brand new here, I'm so excited to have you. And if you're a returning listener, as always, love you, love the support, love, all love. So, you guys, I haven't recorded a podcast episode in quite some time because for bonus week, all of those were recorded ahead of time. So, it's been a while since I've just kind of been able to shoot the breeze with you guys and fill you in on what's going on in life. I took a 2-week vacation to 30A, which is in Destin. And it was beautiful and amazing and the recharge and reset I needed. And also, it really helped me kind of figure out what other topics I wanted to talk about on the podcast, which is, pretty exciting. I have a whole list of what's coming your way. So I'm excited about that. I came back home to Las Vegas and it seriously looks like my house has had a tornado run through it. It looks like something has exploded. It's actually driving me insane. I'm looking around right now. I actually am not able to even record or do calls in my office right now because it's a hot mess express and everything echoes because there's no decorations in there yet. There's nothing on the walls. There is not a carpet on the floor. And so this weekend I spent time shopping and trying to, get some of my designs to come together so I can get this rental home of ours in order because it's driving me crazy. And then, oh my gosh, I'll have to do a separate episode on what I've got going on. But I'm just going to do a separate episode about some things that are going to be maybe changing and shifting a little bit. But other than that, life is good and I'm excited. And I hope that you're having a great 4th, that you're safe and you're enjoying time with friends or your family. So, we're going to talk about a topic today that was a part of a vote weeks ago. It didn't win the vote. The I need to clean up those thoughts was the episode that majority of people voted on. And so that's the episode I recorded. But this was a close second. And I think that it's important to talk about it. So we're going to dive in. And it is processing emotion versus indulging in emotion and how to know the difference, okay? And I think that this is sometimes really difficult for us in our life because, one, we live in a society where most people don't actually process their emotion. They feel emotion to an extent, and then as soon as they realize it's a negative emotion that's making them feel bad, then they buffer. Now, if you're brand new here, episode 3 is all about buffering. It's called Are You Guilty of Buffering? And basically what that means is, do you distract yourself instead of feel your feelings? And that's what most of the world does. When we feel a negative emotion without self-awareness, we tend to distract ourselves from doing the actual work. Oh my gosh, this is going to be interesting. Littles, stop. It's 4th of July, and so people are already setting off fireworks. My time, it's 3:30. Why are you setting off fireworks at 3:30? Anyways, sorry if you hear my dog bark. I'm not going to take that out. Not today. But hopefully he's settling down, so I think he's going to be quiet. Anyways, a lot of the world does not feel their emotions. And instead, we distract ourselves. We get on Amazon and we shop. It'll make us feel better. I actually... Side note, I was in, what store was I in? Burlington. It's kind of like I call it like a downgrade of like TJ Maxx and Home Goods, but still every now and then you can get some great deals. So for instance, area rugs. If you ever need an area rug, it's very hit or miss, but sometimes they have really great things in there. So I was in Burlington and I passed this girl on the phone, and she was like, yeah, I mean, I'm actually not feeling better. I'm just at, oh no, it was TJ Maxx. I'm actually not feeling better. I'm at TJ Maxx because I feel like if I shop, everything will feel better, at least temporarily. And I just kind of like chuckled to myself, but then I also felt sad because this is what we do. It's like we distract ourselves from actually doing the work. So, for this episode, what I want you to focus on is if you actually process your emotions or if you indulge in them. And I'm going to give you examples of what this looks like for both. That way, you can really decipher, am I indulging in feeling this way, meaning that I'm choosing it? I, kind of find a benefit in staying in this mood, versus I'm processing it, I'm letting it come, I'm sitting with it, and then I'm going to let it pass so that I can move on and do more productive things. Okay. So the first thing, if you are processing your emotions, okay, you have a conscious awareness that an emotion doesn't actually last more than 2 minutes chemically. Okay, so I learned this years ago. I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he was doing one of his major talks, and I actually love his work. So for any of you that are kind of like, getting into this kind of work, or you like the podcast, some of my favorite people ever are Byron Katie. I love Eckhart Tolle. I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, and there's a million others. I love, Brene Brown, but I don't consume a lot of her stuff. I actually have never read one of her books, but I have watched like half of her the new book that just came out. Gosh, I can't even think of it. Atlas of the Heart. She has a series where she talks about it on, I want to say it's HBO or something. I've watched half of that, and then I've watched maybe 2 or 3 chats that she's done online, one being the Red Table Talk, and then like maybe two other things that she's done on YouTube. And so I don't consume a lot of her work, but I know that we're very similar. In fact, a lot of people have asked me over the years, do you love Brene Brown? Are you obsessed with Brene Brown? Because your all's work mirrors each other so well. And I'm always like, no, for the longest time, I didn't even know who Brene Brown was, as crazy as that sounds. Now I know of who she is. And when I watch her stuff, I'm like, yes, 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 all of the praise hands, because we're very interested in similar things, and she's made it her life work, and that's been my life work as well. Not to the extent of the research that she does, but mine's a blend of like emotional intelligence and mindset work and all that. Anyways, I'm getting off topic, but I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza years ago, and he was doing a talk about how to give you a background, he is really heavy in neuroscience, in epigenetics, a lot of, brain-heart connection, very big on meditation and actually watching the brain to see how people's brain responds to true meditation when you master that skill, and on and on. And what I learned from him is that chemically, an emotion only lasts up to 2 minutes. So actually, it's 90 seconds to 2 minutes. After that, the chemical is no longer rushing through your body. So the way that he describes this is after 2 minutes, whatever feeling you're having, whatever mood that you're in, is a choice after those 2 minutes. Because for 2 minutes, it's absolutely justified. You have that chemical running through your body that's going to make you feel that anger, that hatred, that disgust, that sadness, that frustration. But then what happens is chemically, after it passes through the body, and if we don't have the conscious decision making process to move on, or to let it go, or to think differently about it, then we store that memory basically in our body, right? And then every time we think of it, we get more mad and more angry, and we perseverate on it, and we continue to make this chemical release for this emotion that's going to end up driving our actions and creating a result that we don't even want. Okay, so it's really important to just be aware that after 2 minutes of whatever negative emotion you're feeling, it can become a choice. Okay, and how you respond after that is really going to determine what kind of results you're creating in your life. Now, if you're indulging an emotion, you have that emotion, right? Except you ignore it or you don't realize that it can pass, and then you buffer and distract yourself or stay busy or perseverate on it. Like you don't let it go. You kind of repeat it over and over again. This person did this thing to me. This person's so annoying. They make me so mad. And then, after maybe you tell your husband or your wife about it, then you go and you complain to your sister or your brother about it. And then after you complain to them about it, then you go complain to your parents about it. And so you put yourself in this state of repeating and complaining over and over and over again and becoming triggered every time you think about it. And that's where that 90-second to 2-minute, I don't want to say concept, but what Dr. Joe has found in his research is that, after those 2 minutes, if you stop the complaining, if you stop the repetitive cycle, then you don't have to live with it. It doesn't become ingrained in you, and it doesn't have to be something that sticks around forever. So after those 2 minutes, it's either you're indulging in it or you've processed it and you've moved on. Okay? So the second thing with processing emotion is sitting with the emotion, leaning into it, working to understand why it might be there. Your emotions are never there just to be annoying. That's what I found in my life, at least. Like every emotion has always taught me something. It's taught me something that maybe I have deep in my unawareness or subconscious. It is there to teach me something that I don't like. It's there to show me something that I don't want to repeat. It's there to help me heighten my awareness of what's working or what's not working in my life. Like any emotion that I feel, good or bad, it's really important to just be with it. Be with the excitement, be with the pain, be with the grief, be with the joy, like be with all of it. And what's more natural when we're indulging is to, constantly repeat the same patterns over and over again of distracting ourselves from the work that is so important. So that's really important. Do you sit with your emotion and lean into it, or do you distract yourself and buffer in order to try to run away from the emotions? The third thing, whenever we're actually processing our emotions, is working with someone that can help us kind of see our mind. So this can be reaching out to a friend that you really trust, that you can, kind of unload on if they're willing to hold that space for you and be that neutral kind of third party for you. Or it can be a therapist if you're really wanting to work through your stuff, especially your past, and kind of like hash it out and kind of revisit that and then get a consensus of maybe what's going on and how to move forward. Or a coach, and a coach is more future focused. We revisit the past long enough to understand maybe why you're doing the things that we're doing or that you're doing, but then it's very future focused of like, well, where do you actually want to be, and let's determine together like what's working in order to get you there and what's not working in your life that's going to keep you from getting there, and let's do that deep work. So that's another way to know if you're processing emotion, if someone's kind of like helping you along. Are you working with a coach? Are you working with a therapist? Are you, do you have a safe place to talk out loud and let yourself be heard and voice your truth and your experiences? But the opposite of this, in indulging in emotion in this way, is when you try to bring other people into your experience in order for them to know how you feel. So like you want them to feel the emotion with you, and you want them to understand so that you feel justified. So there's a difference in like saying like, hey, I just need to vent. I need to get this off of my chest. and I'll feel so much better. I don't need you to solve it for me. I just need to like say it out loud so I can hear myself, and I just need you to just be. Like, just, you don't even have to give me advice. I just need you to like just hear me, okay? That is more processing. However, whenever you're like, I need to complain to you and I need you to agree with me and I need you to hate this person the way that I hate them, or tell me that they were so rude and they're so ridiculous and that I'm justified and that I'm not wrong and they're wrong. Like, if you're asking someone else to basically come into your emotional experience or feel what you're feeling, you are indulging in the emotion. Like, you're indulging in it. You want other people to come into the pool with you. In coaching, we say all the time, like, don't jump in the pool with your clients. So, like, no matter what my clients bring me, it's always my number one job, in order to be the best coach possible for my clients, to be as neutral as possible. So even if they come to me with a scenario that I don't agree with at all, like, and I'm on their side, right? Like, internally I'm like, oh my gosh, if I was in this position, I would so be reacting the same way. Right? My job is to never go there, to be like, okay, as far as empathy, I understand, however, here's some other ways to think about this, or here are some things that you can consider if you want to move out of the way that you're feeling now and into the way that you actually desire to feel. Like, my job is not to jump in the pool of their emotion, as much as they might try to bring me into it in order for them to feel justified. My job is to stay completely clean and clear so that I can coach to the highest and greatest capacity for them, to really see how they're creating what they're creating in their life, especially because a lot of times we're creating something we don't even want. So if I'm agreeing with them, I'm acting more as their friend, versus if I'm, just kind of listening to them and analyzing and then offering something at the end, like, here's a different way to think about this, or here's what I want you to consider. That's completely different, okay? So, this being said, if you're going to someone and you're venting, but you don't need anything from them, you're processing. If you're going to that person and you need them to agree with you and, be on your side and tell you that you're not crazy, then you're indulging. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're indulging, okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. So, how do you know when you're processing emotion when it comes to, like, being re-triggered or being triggered again by something, okay? Whenever you have the thoughts about it, or you are quote unquote triggered by something, it will not carry as strong of an emotional charge, if not an emotional charge whatsoever. So, for instance, if I've processed something that has happened in my life that was previously very upsetting or traumatic, if I've actually processed it, whenever it gets brought up in conversation or whenever I'm around that person, I don't feel emotionally charged. That's how you know if you've really processed something. A lot of times people ask me, how do I know if I've actually forgiven someone? Right? Let's say that somebody that you love has had an affair, okay? And you're thinking of the person, that person that you feel is, they're horrible, they're awful, they've ruined my family, or they ruined my relationship, or I can't stand them, I hate them. But maybe you're wanting to work on forgiveness, and you're just wanting that for you. Okay? Not so much for them, but you're wanting it for you. And you're asking, like, well, how do I know if I've actually forgiven them? Or how do I know that I've actually processed this? Okay? When that person's face enters your mind, or when that person, you hear that person's name. Maybe it's not even someone talking about them, but that, like, maybe they're sharing a story and somebody else has the same name as that person that previously made smoke come out of your ears. When you hear their name, when you see the flashing face up in your brain of that person or whatever, you won't get that same sick to your stomach feeling. It won't be as strong. I'm not saying that the emotion will have completely dissipated. However, it will not be like in those initial moments where maybe it was fresh, before it was processed, before you worked through it, before you did forgiveness work, before you moved on in the relationship or repaired the relationship, or however you handled that scenario, if that has happened to you. That's just one of a gajillion examples, okay? It just won't hold as much emotional charge. So, for instance, if I think of a past experience with a family member that really hurt me in the past, before I had done processing work, every time I thought about it, I would get all worked up all over again. I would cry all over again. I'd get angry all over again. When I had actually processed the emotion through lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of coaching, and I have to say, a lot of my processing has been done through coaching. I did 17 years of therapy before I ever worked with a life coach, or before I ever even found a life coach or knew what a life coach was. And the difference was, in therapy, I got to talk about my hardships over and over and over again, and to an extent that helped me process a lot of things, repeating things over and over and over and over again. However, where I was stuck in my life was, well, if I've been repeating the same things about the same people for 17 years, and for 17 years they haven't changed, and unless they change, I don't know how I'm ever going to feel better. And I was never offered solutions on actually how to feel better if other people didn't change who they were. Okay? And so that was really challenging for me. What coaching did for me was help me understand my brain, help me understand the emotions I was holding on to, help me understand maybe why I was holding on to those emotions the way that I was, and so on and so forth. And when I was able to see maybe why I was perseverating on something, or dying for someone to change their behavior, when I actually understood why my system was fighting so hard for that, that's when I was able to actually process and move through the situation. Not just process and talk about it out loud, but process it and move on. So that when I was around those people, or that person, or that situation would get brought up as a reminder, I didn't feel anything. And not because I was numbing myself out and buffering, but because I truly had processed it to the point where it did not have an emotional charge any longer. Now, what will this look like if you're not processing it and you're instead indulging? The indulging will show up as, I can't let this go. I can't let this go. They hurt me. They are awful. They want me to suffer. It's just like this perseveration on, no matter what, I'm never going to be able to let it go. Okay? And what I want to tell you about indulging is that it feels like it is of service to our brain. So if your brain thinks that indulging is serving you, and your brain uses it to stay stuck, to gain sympathy, okay, and to keep from having to change anything. So let's just say your ex is awful. Girl, guy, I don't care. Alien, whatever, right? Let's just say you believe that they're awful and they've ruined your life. The benefit of indulging in that story is that they get to be the villain forever, and you never have to change anything. You get to stay in a victim mentality. You don't have to move forward. You don't have to do the inner work. You don't have to hire the coach or the therapist. You get to stay exactly as you are and feel sorry for yourself, and you get to pull people into your story where they feel sorry for you, and that feels good for a while. I will tell you that after a while, there's a great likelihood that you won't even want that anymore. That's the point where I got to. It was like I could have kept the victim story my entire life. Oh my gosh, I could have ran with that. And anybody that would listen to my story or knows my story would say, you're totally justified. I understand why you're completely you can't handle these people, or you don't want to be around them, or why you have such strong boundaries. But at the end of the day, what I craved was a different relationship with them, right? A better, healthy relationship with them, even if they didn't change. and better relationship with myself. I didn't want to keep feeling miserable. I didn't want to keep the victim mentality. I didn't want to keep sulking and feeling miserable, because I kept thinking, if I keep this story, I'm going to be in therapy literally the rest of my life, or I'm going to end up making myself ill. Cuz stress, you guys, I can't stress this enough, no pun intended. No pun intended. But stress literally changes your gene expression in your body. It makes you susceptible to illness, okay? Cancers, all of the things that are like autoimmune diseases, there's so much research out there. I realize that not everybody is a science nerd like I am, but for fun, sometimes I go and I read medical journals, okay? Because I think it's really interesting to know how powerful the brain is. And I'm begging for you to take charge of your life and take your power back, because I'm telling you, holding on to the stress, holding on to the bitterness, holding on to all of the things that you wish you could change in another person that you can't, okay, without manipulation and a lot of just icky stuff, holding on to all of that is doing nothing to them and everything to your own body. You're changing your gene expression. You are making yourself susceptible to disease. Okay? It's in tons of medical research articles. It's like people who fret all the time about, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get sick. And then they end up getting sick. And then they stay sick. And then they're like, well, I have all of these things wrong with me. I have all of these things wrong with me. I have all of these things wrong with me. And when they perseverate on that and they indulge in that, people feel sorry for them. People feel sympathy and empathy for them. People are like, bless their little heart. I just wish that they could get better. And then they perseverate on it more and they're like, I know, I feel so sick. Oh, everybody else has it better than me. Everybody else is healthy. I'm not healthy. I'm just so sick. I'm so sick. I'm so stressed. And it becomes this vicious cycle where whatever you're teaching your brain, whatever you're telling your brain, whatever stories are going unchecked in your brain, become the creator of your life. Like, it becomes the result you get. So if you are not checking yourself, you are seriously wrecking yourself. I mean, I say that in kind of a funny way, but I'm actually really, really serious. Like, this is why I preach and coach and do all the things, okay? It's like, this is why this life work is so important to me, because I realized 17 years into therapy, if I did not pull my shit together, and yes, I'm going to just say that, if I did not pull my shit together, I was going to be one very sick human, okay? I was going to end up with all the illnesses. I've read enough research to know that that's exactly where you're headed if you do not get your stress under control. So trust me when I tell you that doing this work may cost you some time. If you need to sit and read different books, okay? If you need to schedule therapy time, if you need to schedule coaching time, yes, it takes time out of your life. And yes, it may also take a financial investment. I've invested over $50,000 in coaching alone, okay? I get it. It takes time and it takes money and it takes sacrifice. Sometimes the time is even just listening to this podcast for free. However, if it changes the way that you're thinking, in order for you to take your power back, you are giving yourself a second shot at life, a second shot at not ending up super, super sick and miserable for the rest of your life, thinking that you have no control. You have so much more control than you are even aware of. You have so much more power than you are even aware of. And I cannot stress that enough. So take the time and make the investments. I'm serious. I'm just going to give it to you as straight as possible. I've entered like serious mode. Figure it out. Figure out how to make it happen for yourself. I'm serious, because I see it all the time. People are heading for disaster by not just taking some time to realize that they have much more power than they think that they do, and that your brain is going to try and keep you stuck. So you really have to ask yourself, am I indulging in all of my stories in order to stay the same? and not change anything? Or am I processing my stuff? Am I working on my stuff? Huge difference, okay? And honestly, just to keep it real, the people who get on your nerves the most are people who are probably not working on themselves. And so if they're getting on your nerves because they're not working on themselves, I want you to look in the mirror and say, am I working on myself? Because I'm sure there are things about me that I can work on so I don't fall in the same category of being stubborn and keeping patterns that are not good for me. It's much easier to see it in other people than it is to see in ourselves. So if you're wanting other people to be, a better version of themselves, first it starts with you. You need to be a better version of yourself, okay? And it can start here for free on the podcast. And then when you're ready to rev it up, depending on what you need, go the therapy route if you're needing that very close attention and therapeutic strategies, or go the coaching route if you're wanting to focus, really on the future and to get where you're trying to go, okay? All right, let's finish this podcast up. So, when you're processing emotion versus indulging, you'd have no need to get others involved unless it's to see a different side and gain more awareness. So again, you're not pulling people into your drama so that they feel the same things you feel. Like if you get people involved, it's because you want their honest opinion, not so that you can tell them that they're wrong, not so that you can critique them, because you genuinely want to see what maybe they see that you don't see. Okay? So that would be like, I'm really mad at my, dad, or I'm really, really mad at my aunt. And, I just feel very, very frustrated because of blah, blah, blah that happened. If you go to someone and you ask them for their honest opinion, it's being able to listen to their honest opinion. Like maybe they'll be like, well, I kind of thought you were a little out of line the way that you all spoke to each other. Like I think both of you were, but I think that you handled it blah, blah, blah. Okay? When you are actually processing your emotion, you're able to hear what they say, not shut down. Okay? You're actually able to listen to some of the things that they're offering you and process it enough to say like, okay, let me try and see a different side. Maybe I was doing that. Is that what I wanted? Like, did I want to respond that way? Did I want to react that way? Do I feel proud that I did that? If I don't, and I didn't want to respond that way, and they're telling me that I did, maybe there's something for me to learn here about how I respond when I'm emotionally triggered. Like when emotions are high, intelligence is low, maybe I come completely outside of myself. Okay? That would be a perfect example of like processing emotion where you just don't need to get other people involved unless it's to help you strengthen your awareness. Okay? Another thing to look at when you're processing emotion is that you will take radical responsibility every time versus blame. Okay? And I think I have a podcast episode about that, but you're not going to be blaming people when you're processing your emotions. You're not going to be like, they made me feel blah, blah, blah. Or they did this to me and it made me feel blah, blah, blah. Nobody can physically make you feel any type of way without your permission. It is physically impossible, okay? Nobody can jump into your body, shake you, and say, I'm going to make you feel sad. The reason that you feel sad, or the reason you feel angry, or the reason you feel like you're ready to explode is because you're thinking thoughts based on something that maybe they've said or they've done. Thoughts are what create the feelings in our body. Okay? So when you are ready to process your emotions, you take radical responsibility for your feelings. I feel frustrated when I'm around my mother-in-law, or I feel irritated when I'm around my sister-in-law, or whatever, okay? It's not because of them. Like they didn't actually make you feel that way. You are feeling that way because of whatever it is that's happening in your brain. Okay? You might not be aware of it right now, but something's happening in your thought process and it's making your body feel that way. And it's very easy to say, they make me feel this way. They are not making you feel any type of way. You are feeling that type of way because of whatever's happening in your brain. So another benefit to coaching is that we figure out what's going on. Why are you becoming all upset when you're around them? What are you thinking? Maybe in the back of your mind, deep, deep, deep down in your subconscious, you're like, I just want them to like and love me. And you're believing that they don't. And so every time you go around them and you're having subconscious thoughts of like, I just want them to like and love me, and they don't, then you feel really upset being around them. And you think that they're causing it. It's like they're being mean and they're making me feel this way. No, you have some things going on in your brain that are currently unchecked, and we just need to check them and figure out what they are. And then we'll work through them together, okay? So that's another piece of processing emotion. And then the last piece of processing emotion is that you have a desire and or willingness to move through it and move on. So it's that desire of like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to hate this person anymore. I don't want to let them control me anymore. I'm done. I'm ready to take my power back. I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to live like this where I'm feeling like out of control and like other people dictate who I'm being or how I feel or whatever. Okay. So that's when you're processing your emotion, is when there's a desire or willingness to actually move through it and move on. How to know you're indulging with all of the things that we just kind of covered. You're blaming people for how you feel or what you're experiencing. You take no responsibility whatsoever. It's pointing the finger at everything that everybody else is doing and nothing about what you're doing or how you're responding or how you're showing up. You argue with any ideas that you can shift. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, yeah, blah, 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 Macy's full of it, I don't agree, I can't change anything, I can't change them, I can't do this, okay? Then you're kind of arguing with the idea that this is fixable, okay? And you're wanting to, it's kind of like pouting, like a toddler pouting and staying stuck, okay? You don't actually have to stay stuck, but your brain is fighting to keep you stuck because that feels easier, okay? So you argue with the idea that you can shift or change or feel differently. You think that you're not going to feel differently at all. And you stand your ground in emotions that are not even serving you long term. So it's like fighting to be right. Like, yeah, I know I'm miserable, but I'm right. And something that Brooke Castillo teaches with the Life Coach School, which is where I did my certification, is she uses this phrase of like, you can be happy or you can be right. You can be miserable or you can be right or whatever. It's like you can insert any kind of phrase in there. Like, at any given point, you can be rich or you can be right? Like there's just so many ways to use that phrase. And basically what it means is like, do you stomp your feet and pout to be right about something that you don't even want to be right about? Okay, so like an example, going back to the rich example which she gives, it's like if you're like, I want to make more money, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And you're just adamant that it's never going to happen. It's like, okay, well, you can be rich or you can be right. And right now you're fighting to be right. You're fighting that it's never going to happen. Like that's what your brain is focused on. It's never going to happen. And it's almost like your brain wants that scenario to play out so you can be like, see, told you so, it was never going to happen. But the point of the matter is that a lot of times you'd rather have the other thing. Like you'd rather experience the wealth, right? Or have more money or more time or whatever. But because you're fighting so hard to be right, you miss it. Like you miss the opportunity to actually change your life. And so that's indulging in in your emotion. So like for instance, for me, it would be like bringing my business and the way that it runs to my coach, okay? And my coach is fabulous and an amazing businesswoman. And so it would be like her telling me, okay, this you need to trash. Like just throw it away. It's not going to work. Change it to this and you'll like go to the moon, okay? If I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that it's never going to work. And she might be like, okay, yes, you get to choose that. Like you don't have to go forward with the things that I'm suggesting, However, why are you arguing with it? What's the fight to keep yourself here? And the fight to keep myself here might be like, I just want to be right about my idea can work, right? Even if she sees something different. And so it's like indulging in this negative negative experience that I don't even want, because the ultimate thing would be I do want my business to work, but when I'm indulging in the fact that it might, it might not work, or, whatever, it's like I get to keep the stories that will keep me feeling comfortable rather than actually moving forward and getting what I want. So I don't know if that makes sense, but we do that a lot where we kind of indulge in emotions that are not serving us long term because our ego fights to be right. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode about processing emotion versus indulging. Which one do you fall under? Are you indulging more than processing? Are you processing more than you're indulging? Either way, if this is something that you want help with, reach out to me and we can talk about it. You can schedule a free consult at MacyRenee.com. It's an hour, and we can determine what would be the next best move for you, whether that is my group program or one-on-one coaching if I have spots available. So reach out if you need anything at all, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great holiday. Bye, guys.